The growth of Teknopolitik. This is Priviso Live. How's it? And welcome back to the weekly show where we make sense of the ever-shifting landscape of information security, ICT legislation, and artificial intelligence. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Steven. Good to be with you again. And lekker timing too, because this week we've got 4 stories, all from the same 48-hour window, that together paint a very clear picture of where the world is heading.
Hey everyone, I'm Kayla, and I have to say, properly hectic week. We've got Apple squaring off with European regulators over Siri, Anthropic dropping what might be the most powerful AI model the public has ever touched, an AI data center that will be launched into orbit.
In actual outer space?
In actual outer space. And a licensing saga that has very real consequences for South Africa's digital future. Lynn, you've been calling this Teknopolitik.
Teknopolitik. And after this episode, I think you'll agree the word fits. Let's start with Apple and their latest scrap with Europe.
On the 8th and 9th of June this year, Apple announced that when iOS 27 and iPadOS 27 launch this autumn, EU users will not have access to the new Siri AI features.
Aish, that is tens of millions of users.
It is. And the reason is the Digital Markets Act, or the DMA, which is EU competition law designed to regulate so-called gatekeeper tech companies. Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon. These are companies so dominant in their platforms that they effectively control market access for everyone else.
And the DMA includes interoperability requirements. If Apple builds Siri AI with deep access to your iPhone's data and device functions, it has to allow other virtual assistants the same level of access. So a competitor's AI assistant should theoretically be able to read your messages, make purchases, access your files, and execute actions autonomously, just as Siri AI can.
Which sounds okay in principle.
But Apple's argument is that in practice, that's a massive privacy and security risk. You're asking them to allow any AI assistant unrestricted access to the most personal data on your device and to act on it without the user having ongoing visibility and control.
Apple proposed a solution they called the Trusted System Agent, a security intermediary layer that would let competing assistants operate within safe parameters. The European Commission rejected that proposal and every other proposal Apple put forward.
And the EC's response was fascinating, and I'd say a little cheeky. Their spokesman told reporters that absolutely nothing in the DMA prohibits Apple from introducing new products in the EU.
Come on now, that's a bit rich, isn't it?
It is a bit disingenuous. The DMA sets conditions Apple says it cannot meet without compromising user security. And what makes this particularly interesting is that Siri AI will be available in the EU on Mac, Apple Watch, and Vision Pro, not on iPhone or iPad.
The 2 platforms where the vast majority of Apple users actually live.
So tens of millions of EU users just don't get this feature. And that, Lynn, is a perfect segue into Teknopolitik.
So Teknopolitik is a play on realpolitik, the idea that politics is ultimately driven by practical considerations of power, not ideology. Teknopolitik applies that same lens to the technology space. It's about how nation-states, supranational bodies, and large technology companies use technology, data, and regulation as instruments of geopolitical power.
And the Apple EU situation is textbook. The EU isn't just doing consumer protection. It's asserting regulatory sovereignty over American tech infrastructure on European soil.
Exactly. And Apple is doing its own version of Teknopolitik back, publicly saying we can't comply, applying pressure, waiting for the Commission to blink.
Hence The Verge's headline, "Who will blink first?" The answer will define how tech companies operate in Europe for a generation.
Now, for South African practitioners, this is not just a fascinating story from far away. South Africa's national AI policy draft is still awaited after the embarrassing earlier withdrawal. However, we're being asked right now to choose regulatory frameworks, technology platforms, and governance approaches. And those choices are being watched from Washington, Beijing, and Brussels.
Because South Africa holds approximately 88% of global platinum group metal reserves, critical inputs to semiconductor and data center infrastructure. We are sitting on a strategic resource in this global tech competition.
So when your board asks, do we need to care about geopolitics in our AI strategy? The answer is very much yes.
On the very same day Apple made its EU announcement, the 8th of June, Elon Musk unveiled something that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. SpaceX's AI-1 satellite.
A satellite called AI-1. I feel like we need a moment of silence for that.
We just might. The AI-1 is SpaceX's first-generation orbital AI compute node, essentially a server rack launched into low Earth orbit at 600 kilometers altitude, where it benefits from near-constant sunlight and radiates waste heat directly into the vacuum of space. No land acquisition, no power grid, no cooling towers.
And the specifications are extraordinary. The deployed wingspan is 70 meters. That is wider than a Boeing 747. It draws 120 kilowatts of compute power on average, peaking at 150 kilowatts. A single AI-1 satellite is roughly equivalent to one NVIDIA GB300 AI server rack.
And Starship can carry 30 to 50 of these per launch, so one Starship mission can deploy the compute equivalent of 30 to 50 GB300 server racks into orbit.
Now, Musk has tied this directly to SpaceX's upcoming IPO, valued at around $75 billion US. Two prototype AI-1 satellites are planned for early 2027, with a full commercial constellation to follow. And if you connect this to Starlink, which is SpaceX's satellite internet service, you start to see the shape of something genuinely transformative, a vertically integrated orbital AI and connectivity stack.
Which brings us directly to South Africa. Starlink is still not legally licensed to operate in South Africa as of early 2026. The ICASA regulatory requirements include individual communications network and service licenses, and South Africa's Electronic Communications Act requires telecommunications license holders to have at least 30% ownership by historically disadvantaged groups, in line with BBE standards.
And I understand why those requirements exist. Transformation and localization are legitimate policy goals, But
the question is one of timing and consequence. Communications Minister Malatsi introduced a draft Equity Equivalent Investment Program, or EIP framework in January this year, which could allow Starlink to comply by investing in local infrastructure or skills development instead of ownership transfer. Starlink has pledged $500 million to connect 5,000 rural schools, reaching approximately 2.4 million learners.
And the context matters enormously. Over 18 million South Africans still lack access to high-speed internet. 18 million. That's a third of the population.
So here's the uncomfortable question. If South Africa takes too long to resolve the Starlink licensing debate, and AI-1 rolls out a global orbital compute infrastructure over the next 5 years, we risk being on the wrong side of the infrastructure divide. Countries that embrace satellite connectivity now will have an AI-ready infrastructure advantage that compounds for decades.
And this is not a hypothetical. This is Teknopolitik in practice. If the infrastructure layer of the AI economy is controlled by American private companies operating from orbit, then every nation that delays its regulatory response is effectively ceding ground in that competition.
It's the DMA situation in reverse. Instead of a regulator trying to control a platform company, it's a platform company potentially leapfrogging regulation entirely by leaving Earth.
And rounding out our set of interconnected stories from this week, Anthropic released Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5 on the 9th of June.
Anthropic, for those who may not be familiar, is one of the leading AI companies in the world, founded by former OpenAI researchers. Claude is actually the AI that powers Priviso's own tools.
So we have a personal stake in this? Fable 5 is described as a Mythos-class model, built on the same underlying architecture as Mythos 5, Anthropic's most powerful model to date. Mythos was apparently considered too capable, too powerful to release publicly. Fable 5 is Mythos with safeguards.
Specifically, when the model detects queries related to cybersecurity attack vectors, biological or chemical synthesis, or what's called model distillation, trying to reverse engineer the AI, it hands the query off to a more conservative model called Opus 4.8 instead.
And this happens in fewer than 5% of sessions. So for the vast majority of everyday use, you get the full Fable 5 capability, state-of-the-art across software engineering, research, knowledge work, and vision tasks.
But Mythos 5 itself, the unrestricted model, is being deployed through Project Glasswing in collaboration with the United States government, specifically for cyber defenders. The stated mission is to help secure what Anthropic calls critically important software,
So the world's most capable AI model is a national security tool. And now the world's most capable orbital infrastructure company is launching AI data centers into space. The EU is using regulation to assert sovereignty over platforms, and South Africa is still debating whether to let a satellite internet service in.
All of these things are connected. And the connection is Teknopolitik. The AI one, Project Glasswing, the DMA, they're all expressions of the same underlying contest. Who controls the infrastructure, the compute, and the connectivity of the AI economy?
And this is precisely the kind of question that ISO 42001 AI governance frameworks are designed to help organizations think through. AI governance is not just about whether your chatbot gives accurate answers. It's about understanding the geopolitical and ethical context in which your AI infrastructure was built, and who controls the layers beneath it.
So we've gone from Siri can't read my texts in France to control the orbital infrastructure layer, control the AI economy.
And that's exactly why we do this show.
And there you have it. This has been Priviso Live. We hope you found today's episode interesting. If you did, please share it with your colleagues, your friends, your family. Word of mouth is a strong driver of podcast growth.
If you want to hear more of the same, subscribe to Priviso Live on Apple, Samsung, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube.
And if you need security, risk, or ICT legislation advice, contact Priviso Consulting directly at admin@priviso.co.za.
And if you have topics you'd like us to cover or questions about anything we discussed today, reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Kayla. Thanks for listening.
Stay secure.
Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe.